There is an article in today's Hindu front page which says that CBI ED chiefs can have 5-year terms. The important thing here is mains questions will be in the lines of, is ordinance a subvention of democracy? Is the root of ordinance a dilution of democracy? Right? Next, ordinances are bypassing the checks and balances of parliament. Comment. Okay. Next. Think about it. Government has introduced an ordinance. Okay. Soon we will have winter session of parliament, and probably government will pass the bill in one day without any accountability and transparency. So is it actually promoting democracy? Is there a need to empower the age gap or age limit for these kind of posts? These are the most important questions that you need to think. Ordinances. What are ordinances? When can an ordinance be issued? Just before the parliament. Is it really worth to issue an ordinance? Okay, next. Static wise, prelims questions wise, the question is, normally when can an ordinance be issued? So is that mentioned in constitution, polity, Lakshmikant, any place? No. Then when parliament is not in session, be technically specific. So is Lok Sabha dissolved? So the term is when either of the houses is not in session. Okay. So even if one house is not in session, we can technically speaking issue ordinances. So Rajya Sabha is a permanent body, it's not dissolved. But either houses are not in session, ordinances can be issued. And ordinances are supposed to be extraordinary tool given in the hands of president or governors to be used in emergency situation, not at every other corner. So the number of ordinances issued after 2014 has gone up. Okay, ordinances have gone up. That clearly shows that parliament is having some issues. There is not enough debate in the parliament. The rest all is political discussion. Opposition parties will obviously blame. They also have misused ordinances multiple times. So that's not the case. Now, second thing, what about the morale of the forces? See, every 2 years, let's say CBI chief or somebody is retiring, the lowest cadres will be promoted to the highest cadres. So there will be a lot of people who will be waiting in the promotion line. Yes, and these are all supposed to be for national security and other purposes. These are not political appointments. Yes or no? These are not political appointments. The intention of why government is doing this is very unclear. But we as a UPSC aspirant can always write, if one person is on the helm of the ED or CBI for a long amount of time, he can oversee all the reforms he is introducing. Today I'm introducing a reform, within 1 year I'm retiring. Okay, I may not follow up on all the reforms I'm doing, but if I have 5-year tenure, probably I will supervise all the reforms that I'm implementing. So the continuation of reforms will be there. That can be one argument. Next, prelims basic questions like Central Vigilance Commission. Central Vigilance Commission was created on whose recommendation? Is a prelims question. Or a expected prelims question. On whose recommendations is this body CVC created? Okay, as obviously you can see, it's a statutory body. Central Vigilance Commission is a statutory body. So if you open Lakshmikant, there is a dedicated chapter for CVC. So who will be coming under CVC? Next, in ethics paper also, you will use the term CVC very regularly, that you can complain to the Chief Vigilance Commissioner, but as a citizen, not as a Group A officer. You cannot go and complain about a fellow officer in CVC, right? But we can create that mechanisms. Yes. Almost all the present top leaders or top bureaucrats in the country are working on extension. So retirement age has passed, still the government thinks they are the best people in the position. So that's something which all governments have time and again done. The other day we have discussed the same thing. CATSA. CATSA is a domestic act of USA, but it is raised to the international level. So anyhow, Russia has started delivering the S-400 system to India. 2016 or 17 prelims question has been already asked on the same topic. Now, will it affect India-USA relations? Which one? This one. By receiving the weapons, will it affect India-USA relations? How? Okay. What are the long-term ramifications if SCATSA is imposed on India?
USA might be willing to sign more agreements in just for
Mm-hmm.
might be at the loss.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What is the counter argument?
They are developing good ties with Israel.
Okay. The summary is USA, if not in S-400 deal, okay, at least they are able to sell other kinds of weapons to India, drones, aircrafts. They are trying to sell, and we have a long-term future, long-term relationship to maintain with India. So that is a perspective of USA, right? So if USA tries to, if USA tries to impose sanctions, and anyhow we went ahead and started taking the weapons from Russia, there won't be any face-saving mechanism for USA. Think about it. USA has imposed CATSA sanctions. Then we said, for our national interest, for strategic autonomy, we are taking weapons from Russia. Do whatever you want to do. Then what will USA do? It will reset the entire India-US ties. It will reset the entire US ties way back to 2008 levels. So all the defense agreements, all the strategic partnerships, Quad, Afghanistan, everything we have done so far collectively will be a failure more or less. So I don't think USA will be that rash or radical in imposing CATSA sanctions, right? That's one thing. Second thing, they need us, they want us to buy more weapons in one way or the other. If not S-400, we will buy something else. All this drama is to pressurize India to think that next time if weapons in the first place. Yes or no? If I don't put that much pressure on you right now, okay, and if I give you freedom, next time you will also think, okay, I can buy Russian weapons again. So that's one way. Third, THAAD, third, thermal high altitude weapon system that is developed by USA. We are not purchasing them from. Third is from USA only, right? As Israel. I think from USA only. I'm not sure, but that is the concept. They have their own thing to sell, so they are not happy that we are not buying one or the other weapon system from USA. And this also reinforces our strategic autonomy. Next, we have 2.5 front war. So we cannot give in to the pressure of any country. Our national security is paramount. We need to tackle Pakistan and China at the same time. We need the best pace possible.
Also, a delegation from US Congress has recently met Prime Minister.
Hmm.
Yeah, just before 2 days,
Mhm.
and the delivery has started.
Hmm.
Which means both the parties are aware of all this happening.
Everybody knows.
So
400 is a done deal. We have already established. Again, I'm telling you, right? America wants to give that image. Okay, we are giving you some charity. India, you are exempted from CATSA. You take weapons. What will India say? I don't care what you want. I need S-400. Do whatever you want to do. Then America does not have any excuse or justification. If you see this infographic, it is very creative, right? And it is nothing new. We have already discussed almost all the points. If business as usual model means the temperature will go up to the 2.7 degrees or it will cross 3. Yeah. Additional 1.5. We have already crossed 1.2. We are at 1.2 degrees. So 2.7 more. Yes. We will almost touch 4 degrees. So all these are real life scenarios. So if we do nothing, we will reach 3+. If we do something about it in every letter and spirit, we will stop at 1.8. 1.2 plus 1.8 is still a very, very deadly scenario. Okay, so we'll see how things will go.
Is it by 2030?
See, World Photographic, a report of it by 2030, we will reach a good amount of breach and by 2.4 degrees Celsius by 2100. Okay, so see what he is trying to tell you is, if even if we achieve Paris deal in letter and spirit, one day we will stop it at what, maximum 1.8, that is still 3 degrees Celsius. So whatever we are going to do now is not still good enough. At least that's the best case scenario of all the evils available. That is the lesser evil. Yes. So your question 2050 is how true? So he's saying 2050 probably will still be under 2 degrees, but we might accelerate. So you can use the same thing in presentation for answer writing also. Yes or no? Instead of writing the typical paragraphs, you can draw 4 paragraphs and show this is how we are going to damage the planet sooner than later. Luckily, if that is the real case scenario, let's say 2100, okay, none of us will be around. So we don't have to worry about the planet. But 2050, let's hope. Sorry. Yes. Why destroy? I'm saving, right? It's save, not destruction. Now, a question. Supreme Court has given some suggestions to Delhi government and other governments to implement environmental policies. Is it judicial activism?
Not overreach.
It's a policy. It's a policy decision, right? What should be done to tackle policy is a policy decision of executive. But who is telling? Supreme Court is, a judiciary is saying. So judiciary is doing the work of executive. So can we call it as overreach? But at the same time, don't you think it's an extraordinary circumstance?
Yes.
Really extraordinary circumstance. You are in Delhi for 3 days. Okay. On day 1, if I didn't do anything, on day 3, you will be severely affected because of the pollution. Okay. Then isn't it justified in the part of Supreme Court to say we have to save lives? So is it a positive intervention? It's a very positive intervention. But again, with right consciousness, I cannot say here saying it's okay. Though it's an extraordinary or an emergency situation, but I still think the same level of accountability should be there on the executive also. If people are dying in 3 days, executive also knows that people are going to die in 3 days. Why is executive not moving that rapidly? Why don't we have the mechanisms to move things? Think about it. Delhi air pollution is name of Delhi alone. Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh. Then you can take even Himachal Pradesh, technically speaking. So there are multiple states involved in tackling the air pollution of Delhi. Yes, farmers issue. Multiple ministries are involved in the air pollution of Delhi. Why isn't there a single constitutional mechanism being revoked or applied? Let's say interstate council. A part of interstate council can be pulled. Yes, we don't see the proactiveness from the executive point of view. We only see the activeness from judiciary point of view. Or for namesake, they will meet once in a year. All these chief ministers of the states will meet once in a year. Okay, we will do this. There is no serious follow-up. Yes or no? If Article 21 is important, Supreme Court is willing to go overreach to promote Article 21. So in that stand, Supreme Court is very valid. Yes or no? Right to life with dignity. If I'm living in Delhi and if I'm dying because of pollution, I'm not living with dignity. Right to health is also a fundamental right. So to uphold all these things, Supreme Court is very interested in proactively doing something. But why not the same for executive? Yes, and we also have to understand these are very long-term problems. It's not like overnight I will discuss, I will set up a meeting and I will solve them. There needs to be a constant pressure from executive side also. Only then things will work out. Okay. Yes, they have included even Rajasthan. Why Himachal Pradesh coal plants in Himachal Pradesh also release a lot of pollution, which will travel all the way back till Delhi. So like this, it's a multi-state problem, and crores of Indians are affected. If you see the air pollution map from Punjab all the way till Kanpur, the entire North India will be under the blanket of fog, right? It will increase a lot of respiratory problems. Lot of, you see, children will suffer, women will suffer, senior citizens will suffer. All these things come under your fundamental rights. Okay, so think about both these things. Why Supreme Court is intervening? Because they know that executive is not doing. But is it justified? Purely from constitutional point of view, it's not so.
Sir, recently there was a petition in Supreme Court regarding the extension of Char Dham Road. So again, the question of development versus environment is here. So what is your take on it? Like, would you see
Sustainable development. See, Char Dham is one of the most auspicious thing for a Hindu.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? What natural
No, sir, but,
environment.
But given the magnitude of
Never let a good crisis go waste. Think about it. See, you can make it the most sustainable tourist place in the entire country if you have the right thought process and mind. Okay, so everything done, let's say for the Char Dham Yatra, the roads till hotels, the maintenance, there is no greed, pure religious interest and sustainable interest. Then you can make it one of the most eco projects anywhere.
yes, sir, but the government argument is that they want to carry BrahMos missile to
That is
face the aggression of China.
that
Was the argument given by government for the extension of Char Dham Road.
that's border road management, right? National security. In the name of national security, everything is justified.
But again,
We need India to have Char Dham.
sir,
So
but destruction of that mountains there will cause landslides in some other place in
see,
later.
the problem
years.
is, if I am actually constructing, let's say, a huge amount of road, it will destroy a good amount of pristine forest. No doubt about it. That can never be coming back. Okay. What I'm trying to tell you is, you can use it in both the ways. But at the same time, if you show the sincerity to restore as much pristine condition as possible after the destruction, nobody can have a problem with it. But we haven't seen a single success story anywhere in the country. Once you destroy it, have you ever, why till, all those things, even if you see in Hyderabad, when people dig the roadsides for what, for water, pipe, whatever, have you ever seen them again doing it perfectly? No, right? Our interest is only until we dig up. Filling it is haribari. We never do the things in a perfect way. But if we do that, actually, nobody should have a long-term complaint. Okay. Delhi edition. Interesting for essay, prelims also.
Yes, sir.
Mostly for environment and biodiversity conservation kind of questions, you can use this article. See, whenever you think about conservation, always think about local population. You cannot complete that conservation efforts without local population, whether in Gir forest or the Vaishnois or in the Chenchu of Nallamala or any place in the country. Any effort is successful only when you include the local populace, either tribals or local population, villagers. Okay. That is exactly what government of Telangana is also doing. We have Nallamala forest, which is famous for tigers, okay, and chenchus. So they are providing livelihood to the chenchus as a tourist guides, right? They have local knowledge. That local knowledge is rewarded. And the next generation of chenchus will also have a lot of motivation to learn their traditional mechanisms or methods. Why? So that they will earn some livelihood. Two, advantage is it is acting in a conservation fashion. When you include local population, I know that my livelihood is dependent on tiger population, then I will automatically promote tiger population. Yes or no? We are a country where locals and animals have Tribals and animals have survived for thousands of years without having any man-animal conflict. Occasionally, we will have a man-animal conflict, but not that on a regular basis. How? We understood how to co-survive with the animals. So next, all the board software engineers and people of Hyderabad can also go to ecotourism. We'll come to know what is tiger not through VR, AR headsets, but in reality. Yes, so it will be a nice break for us as well. So all these kind of innovative out of the box thinkings are highly recommended. And also throw in some religious trekking. Yes, tiger plus religion plus conservation plus empowerment all in one go. Nice idea, right? Yes. Definitely something we can use in answer writing, GS paper 3 conservation efforts and
GS2 governance.
governance less, but yeah, it's more about environment and biodiversity. How can we promote conservation? And we can also throw in the Indian ethos. We always have a symbiotic relationship with the nature. All of you know symbiotic relationship, right? There is environment and biodiversity textbook, right? There are different types of relationships. Yes, yes, symbiotic and all those. Symbiotic means give one, take. Vivek Kalju. Striding back into the Afghan theater. By looking at his name, you can estimate what he's trying to tell. He is one of the strong proponents of the idea that India should have discussed with the Taliban before America has left Afghanistan. India should have opened dialogue and diplomacy with Taliban. He's one of the few people who argues it very strongly, and he's trying to reinforce that idea. Recently, we have something called as the Delhi Declaration, where national security advisors of different countries came together, and they are worried about certain things. What are those certain things? So minority and women protection should be there in Afghanistan. So all these are demands for Taliban. Taliban should implement these things. That is what all these NSAs are expecting. Second one is a open and truly inclusive government. Right. Next, representing the will of the people of Taliban and all sections of the societies. Yes. So if you see recently, what are the things that Taliban have done? They have executed a volleyball player. A girl was beheaded. A Shia mosque was bombed. Okay, Hazaras were killed. I mean, whatever I'm trying to tell you is, Taliban is exactly living opposite to this particular thought process. Women are not allowed to go out. So people are escaping from Afghanistan into Pakistan and other places for as low as 800 rupees. If you give 800 rupees to the people in the border like Taliban or someone, they are allowing you to pass as escape to Afghanistan, Pakistan and other neighboring countries. And Afghanistan is near broke. They don't have any financial resources nor any long-term plans. Right? So that is how bad Afghanistan is at this present scenario. Okay, so humanitarian crisis is inevitable in Afghanistan. That's the crux. Next, how can we stop this from happening? Okay, something more pragmatic. Taliban won't collapse, right? Taliban will thrive in chaos. See, some animals thrive in chaos. Some animals thrive in order. Yes, they are the most rigid fighters. They have seen the worst of America's oppression, Russia's oppression. They survive. They have little means and they will still survive. So you cannot beat such spirits. That's the first thing we have to understand. There is no such thing as Worst case scenario for them. They already have seen the worst case scenario. Everything else is luxury for them. Now, whatever they are seeing is freedom, right? Yes or no? It's like Eric Hoffer's quote, right? We feel happy when we fall from frying pan to fire. That gap is also happiness. So I think Taliban is in that stage, falling from frying pan to fire. So that the temporary relief is still happiness, right? Yes or no? So I think Taliban is in that kind of situation. Now, wanting to rule a country is one thing. Administering a country is a whole different scenario. What is the immediate source of income for Taliban?
Drugs.
Pakistan. Pakistan is the immediate source of revenue for Taliban. Pakistan is the only country which has a direct land relation with Taliban, and they will help the Taliban also. Next is drugs, trafficking, weapons, arms, smuggling, all kind of bad things will happen as a degrees. The first and most important thing is Pakistan support. The next one is drugs. In between these things, what the world can do is collectively come together and pressurize the Afghanistan government to become more liberal. Okay. As a reward, we will recognize you and give you humanitarian assistance. That is what everybody should be striving for. That is what he's arguing in a way. Okay. If Pakistan does not allow that to happen, okay, then the blame can be totally put on Pakistan morally. I hope you understood the crux, right? The simple thing is Taliban are in desperate need of help, and Pakistan is the only source of help. But if we can come collectively and use this opportunity to promote the welfare of the Afghanistan citizens, the citizens will remember. Okay. And if Pakistan objects the help, Pakistan will become the villain. Right? And at the same time, we are solving the humanitarian crisis to spiral into something else. These are the major things. Now, the problem he says is every country for himself or every man for himself. How? We don't have a collective action, where collective action is mere words. At individual level, except India, everybody is having a direct relationship with Taliban. So if Taliban does not want to train it or turn its guns to Russia, Russia will bilaterally discuss with Taliban. China will bilaterally discuss with Taliban. So everybody is indirectly empowering the Taliban. So no, collectively we can put pressure. Individually, Taliban can bargain. Which one is better? Collective pressure is always better. But except India, every other country already have a direct ties with Taliban. So that is not going to work in India's favor. So what Mr. Kaji is saying is this: it's a very laudable objective, humanitarian crisis and all these things. But how realistic is it? Is it pragmatic? Why it's not pragmatic according to him? That means Taliban will appear like it is giving freedom back to women or children or minorities, or it is inclusive in look and feel. That will pacify these countries, right? See, why are these countries invested in saying Pakistan don't do this to women? Because if women rights are violated and international media picks it up, okay, then everybody will blame Russia, China, Japan, or any other country who is dealing with Taliban. So if Taliban appear like, we are empowering the women for look's sake, if there is no media pressure, then what will happen? Everybody can have bilateral dealings with Taliban very easily and freely. So these are the issues that one can think of. Okay. Now, what should India do? It's a catch-22 scenario for India, right? India is one of those countries which has closed out the embassy and pulled all its diplomats back from Afghanistan. Now, if India has kept diplomats in Afghanistan, let's say that they were attacked by Taliban, who will be blamed again?
Government of India.
Government of India. If he's saying that India has done this and we don't have any direct access, if we keep them and something happens, that will only escalate the issue. Second thing, why will Pakistan not want to attack India? Say, for example, if Indian embassy is there in Afghanistan, Pakistan will at least give some sections of the Taliban to attack Indian embassy, so that there will never be a relationship between India and Taliban. Yes or no? So that is also in the vested interest of Pakistan. So it's not that easy to maintain a link with an enemy, with someone in the middle who does not even want you to talk to the enemy. Yes or no? As I keep saying in my classes also, whenever India and Pakistan try to make peace, immediately the peace talks are followed by some kind of terrorist attack or some kind of war. Why? These vested interests don't want India and Pakistan to have a peaceful relationship. In the same way, if India and Taliban are even trying to discuss, even the thought comes to the mind of the India and Taliban, automatically Pakistan will try to create a enmity between India and Taliban, not Afghanistan, India and Taliban, so that there won't be any chance of reconciliation between India and Taliban. So Pakistan is hell bent on making sure that India and Taliban are never even discussing. That's the core theme we have to remember. So we have a huge amount of hurdles to surpass. We have to bring that global consensus, global pressure. The best thing India has is moral authority. Yes or no? The best thing India have is moral authority and lot of food grains. We can use this to fight the Pakistan's treachery or Pakistan's threat. Here. Sorry.
If India, US, and easy to that
USA will not. USA is not even interested in looking in the direction of Afghanistan. See, there has to be some humanitarian crisis. There needs to be a global anger on Taliban. Then everybody will be morally pressurized to do something about it. But as we have seen other day, why are we not discussing about Yemen, Syria? Why we discuss about, let's say, Israel issue, money, or there is some profit for everyone? Why are we even discussing about Afghanistan as an Indian? Because we have a security threat. If we didn't have a security threat, we would have not even bothered about Afghanistan. Yes or no? Are we discussing, let's say, Ethiopia? Why?
we are not bothered.
It's in a different continent and there is an ocean between us. Nothing will happen to India. No issues whatsoever. So humanitarian empathy or humanitarian values have come down to national security and security interests alone. So we have been reduced to that particular levels. Yes or no? As Greta Thunberg was saying yesterday, COP26 means what? Blah, 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 and blah. More blah. Yes or no? It's pure nonsense, right? Yes or no? There is nothing that is happening. There is so many crises that are happening in the world, and we cannot have a single person in any part of the world actually whom we can call as an authority discussing these issues. Not a single country's prime minister or president is vociferously discussing about Ethiopia or something. Yes. Why? Where is UNSC? Where is UN?
So it is like taking another burden on their head.
So how effective the FATF body in Pakistan in order to not let's
I don't think Pakistan need to use any cash, right? It can influence in kind. So Financial Action Task Force, see, Pakistan will provide guidance, military support, suggestions, strategies. So that's whole new ball game. FATF is more about stopping your money flow. Yeah.
But the only income is money.
Which one?
For Taliban.
Huh.
The only source of
FATF is on Pakistan, not on Afghanistan. I think Afghanistan does not have. There are all kinds of sanctions on Afghanistan, but you can understand it, right? There is no legitimate government in the first place. So who are you even discussing with? If I put you under FATF blacklist also, so you don't recognize me, I don't recognize you, but you are under FATF blacklist. How does that work? So we have to build the global consensus. Delhi Asian Summit, NSA Summit is the same, right? That is exactly why NSA Summit has been convened by India, to not fight it alone, but to fight collectively, and all of them have attended because of the moral pressure. If they don't attend, they are like in the side of Taliban. Yeah. Next, learning from the best in COVID-19 fight. Again, very useful article for your ethics case studies point of view and governance way forwards point of view. In GS paper 2 governance, you can use them in the way forward, or for GS paper 2, sorry, GS paper 4 ethics case studies, out of the box solutions. Now, similar article was there, Project Sampurna.
Yes, sir.
Out of the box. There was also an Indian Express article of an IAS officer, how she promoted the vaccine trust against vaccine hesitancy. How can we promote vaccine trust? The advantages of all these things is the same things can be implemented in 10,000 other things. So don't just limit it to COVID alone. We can use the same in vaccine for other diseases, build a long-term vaccine trust. Okay, not only vaccine trust, we can use it to fight other kinds of diseases like TB, smoking, alcoholism, population control, the same behavioral changes and the awareness generation. You can even use it for communal hatred. Yes or no? So the same tools and techniques can be used in multiple places. So what are the tools and techniques? First of all, one of the first things they discuss is panchayatis. Yes or no? Indians love to talk. Yes or no? All we need is a banyan tree and a round cement slab. Yes, yes or no? That's all we need. We will start discussing anywhere and anything. Just put a tea in the hand of the people. We will have the best discussions ever in the world. So exactly that is what government has targeted. They have brought in the people with some kind of positive awareness towards the vaccines, with vaccine trust, and they created these informal discussions. In informal discussions, people will open up, I have heard someone died after taking vaccine. Then he will say, nothing like that, all is well. Yes or no? That is promoting vaccine trust. It's zero cost. Yes or no? Government does not have to spend a single rupee. And it is creating that social bond among the villagers also. I told you multiple times, right? Barber shops, school teachers, temple priests, people with political affiliations, and sarpanches. These are the most powerful people in the village, right? A barber will never cut your hair alone, right? Like he will always have a group of people and there will be a good amount of discussion. So if you make them brand ambassadors for vaccine trust, okay, you're spreading a lot of knowledge. Sarpanch, school teachers in villages are the most respected people. Okay, if Sar says, it must be correct. Temple priests or any religious priest, more or less mosque or temple priest, these people also can promote a lot of vaccine trust. Okay, the last one again, sarpanches, I told you, I think. Yeah. So if you pull in all these people and start spreading the message slowly, the entire villages can be converted. Clear? I'm not saying 100% success rate will be there, but still 80 to 90% is a damn good rate in any scenario. That kind of behavioral awareness changes can be done. Political leaders also. Sometimes political leaders will also have a lot of impact. The next thing I have. This we have seen in that Himachal Pradesh village also, I told you, right? There is a village in Jammu and Kashmir, which is the first village in the country to get 100% vaccination. Fake news reached that village much faster than the vaccine trust. Still people went there and vaccinated the sarpanch. After 1 week, they came back, the sarpanch was alive. Then people started trusting vaccinations. So sarpanches and the village heads are the first people to get the things done. Okay, like this, they're talking about how vaccinations are promoted for the entire country. Every region has its own setting. See, India is having a different climate patterns, hilly and difficult terrains, different cultures, different religious dominations. So overcoming all these things, they have taken the help of different techniques. For example, They asked the people to write songs in tribal folk ways, so that people will be very well connected with the vaccine campaigning. It's one interesting. Yes or no? Even Arvind Kejriwal has used this trick during Aam Aadmi Party campaigning. Yes, to use the old traditional techniques. People are actually very interested. We might think, who will nowadays who will listen to all these things? But if you actually go onto the road and do some, traditional folk art or something, people actually gather and they listen. So probably are so bored with the mobiles that we might actually believe in all these traditional mechanisms. Way forward. The summary is to collect and decimate. Some district collector or some administrator or some healthcare worker has a creative, innovative idea. Don't stop it there. Collect all such innovative idea. Even an ASHA worker can be an innovative person. She might have done something very innovatively to promote the health trust. Collect all such things under one place. Then start spreading the message. What will happen?
They will also implement them.
Others might get some new inspiration. Array, in this area also this might work. You think about the cultural similarities, you understand what will work, what may not work, right? So using all these things, you can promote healthcare sector. So next time when government wants to fight a behavioral changing issue, all these tricks can be brought out. Yes or no? Either for Swachh Bharat Abhiyan or for anything else, all these tricks can be used and implemented, and things will get better. We'll have a healthy country. That's one way to look at the things. And it is done by a civil society. Apps, hoardings, celebrities, TVs. We should give rewards. We can put selfie posters, right?
Yes, sir.
We have seen selfie posters just outside the vaccination hall. You will have a poster or you will have a stand where you can take a selfie. I have been vaccinated. So that is an incentive. That is a reward. For an urban monkey, selfie is the... People are so interested in selfies, right? I have seen this number of people putting up WhatsApp statuses. I have been vaccinated. You did not do a lot of service for the country, right? You are vaccinated. Okay, but still for him, it was motivational. It was a, good enough things. Why do you think a lot of people actually go to polling booths in the early morning?
Photo
in Facebook.
voted.
Yes. So that is a motivation. So again, I'm not saying any service to the country is a service to the country, right? You can think about all this thing. But here also you can link how civil societies and everybody is coming to create a positive mechanisms. Spreading hate is easy. Spreading hate is easy. Identifying the unsung heroes and celebrating them is the best way forward for healthcare crisis. So civil societies are doing a lot of good for the country. Civil society, state, when they both work in tandem, hand in hand, we can achieve miracles. Asha worker, some Asha worker, as I told you, she might be good at singing. Okay, she went to every place and she started singing that why vaccination is a good thing. Probably some people got converted. So she should be celebrated. Yes or no? Yes. What is Maoism? Maoism different from left-wing extremism? Is left-wing extremism different from Naxalism? All the three are same.
It's like सच के आसपास demands of all the three groups are more or less the same, but the way they struggle for it are different.
There are three groups.
Three in the sense like one is Maoists, other is this Naxals, and
Where they come from?
I could
Both are same. Maoism and Naxalism is same.
more or less the same.
More or less the same. These three originate from the idea of communism.
These three originate from the idea of being
Okay. Left-wing extremism is an ideology. It's an ideology, right? Left is an ideology. Left-wing extremism is a ideology. The applications are manifested in the form of Maoism or Naxalism. So technically speaking, Maoism comes from the followers of Mao.
Mao Zedong.
Okay, the Chinese premier Mao. Always remember, the most interesting definition is completion of the statement. The thing here is they want to overthrow the state. They don't believe in the Constitution of India. They don't believe in Indian government. They want to overthrow the state and they want to establish their own thing, right? And that is where the term Maoism comes into the picture. Okay. Here, they don't believe in the state. And in India, Naxalbari is a village. Naxalbari is a village in West Bengal. In 1961, a group of people who were on the receiving end of injustice took up arms against the landlords or the zamindars. That is how the movement of Naxalism came. So it started in Naxalbari. That is why it is known as Naxalism. Okay, it started in Naxalbari. That is why it is called as Naxalism. But if you see all the communist Maoist parties, they are CPI Maoist. Yes. CPI Maoist. So like this, you associate with the Maoist. That is ideology of Mao. So again, Mao has his own reasons for creating the Communist Party, right? And to overthrow the Chinese government. They had a whole different issue ongoing there. It does not actually apply into the country. Yes. And even we have seen the same issue in Nepal also. Nepal also we have seen Naxals are Maoists. Then they have given up the weapons. Prachanda is the famous example. Yes. Then they have become a political party. Clear? Now, in 1960s, the state was not so developed. The state was not so developed. It was not a complete welfare state. We are a budding democracy. We were hardly 10 to 13 years old. There were a lot of asymmetries, inequalities, lack of clarity. Atrocities happened on the tribals, both by landlords and by the police officers. Public service delivery was not reaching the last man in the line. There was a huge amount of inequality that is happening in the society. So it made sense to the people of that time to pick up arms and to protect themselves, because state is not in a position to protect them. Our state is working for the vested interests. Okay. But slowly over the decades, Indian government has realized that this is not going to work, and it has become more compassionate, and it started working purely for the welfare of the people. Still there are imbalances, still there are people who misuse the power, there is corruption. But the macro theme is Indian government is more sensitive to the issues of the tribals or for the welfare of the people. Yes or no? Now, because the state is such, invested in the welfare of the people, the Maoists have become institution among themselves. Maoism or Naxalism is an instrument. It has become a institution, right? They were created to protect the people from the state. Now, state has to protect the people from Maoists. Yes or no? State is willing to construct schools, hospitals in Naxal affected areas. Okay, the Maoists don't want that to happen. They want the people to be in ignorance or darkness so that they will have the support. If welfare starts reaching the shores of the villages, okay, people will no longer support the Maoists or Naxals. Yes or no? So that is why they don't want the development. And they have even started extorting money, extortion of money. If you are constructing something in an Naxal affected area, you have to give certain amount of money to people, to the Naxals. So they started having links with the Chinese groups, different groups, international crime organizations. So they have totally forgotten the core ideology and they are working. And I am also the first person who is going to say that state is not perfect. State still does a lot of wrong things. It rubs off in the wrong way. It is still not totally pro poor. There are a lot of issues with the state, but we cannot justify killing of an innocent citizen in any reason whatsoever, for whatever reason. Okay, yes, tribals are being exploited. Yes, there are other ways to fight for the tribals. Okay, Naxalism is the last option that even should not exist. Killing is wrong, unequivocally, right? And think about, let's say out of the 26 rebels who were killed, even let's say 15 people are under the age of 25. The youth of this nation, they should have been working, studying, they should be contributing to the country rather than fighting against the country. Why are they still being attracted to the Maoism? That means still some amount of injustice is happening in some part of the country, or romanticization of Naxalism is still prevalent. These things have to be targeted. Winning hearts and minds is more important.
But again, Supreme Court is hell-bent on saying that reading Maoist literature or communist literature, but the law enforcement agencies perceive that as a romanticization of communism and
There are at least 1 billion population in the planet who have read Karl Marx. Let's say you have read Karl Marx, you have read Mao. Okay, did you pick up arms?
sir, but
I have read about Bhagat Singh. Did I start throwing bombs?
sir, but
The Bhagat Singh also didn't have bombs. Do you think he opened the drawer of his kitchen and threw 2 bombs? No, right?
But
He created bombs. Which one?
It supported Bhagat Singh to throw bombs.
Yes, if you think about injustice, even today there is injustice, right?
But now we can't do that
Why?
because the law and order is very.
Back then also law and order is there. Why?
Back then when British was there.
Oh, British is the law and order.
But now we respect everyone respects our Indian constitution.
Then why are Naxals not respecting India? From that, but they are young people, right? Naxalism is 1960. That people are born in 2000s.
Yes, but still the blood,
The blood. Okay. Okay. So Naxal son will become Naxal. That is your theory.
Never.
No.
Anyone can become
Any-
ideologies.
Okay. Injustice, lack of access to public service delivery. See, you and I are receiving the benefits of the system, right? We have a lot of advantage. We are going to school, education, AC, everything is there. But for them, basic amenities are not there. They have to struggle for food. They have to struggle for land. Let's say there is a land that they are tilling. Somebody will come and say, "This is my land. I have to mine here." So villages are overnight cleansed or shifted. So the tribals will have such anger. Naxals to fight for their own lands. Even see, as recently as 2004, 2002, if you see the Salva Judum and all those things, what happened? Today you are living on a village. Okay, some local minister or MLA or someone found out there are minerals in your village. He was given license 10 kilometers away from your village, but he will come and evacuate all of you by force, and he will start mining in the entire area. But his license is given somewhere else. Okay, he still wants to exploit everything. So just imagine a tribal person who is not educated, who does not know the what we call as ways of world. He is not adaptable. Okay, is born and brought up in a certain mindset. Overnight, you are coming and saying, you have to vacate by force. All your life has been removed overnight. Then what will you do? You go to the police. That's the normal conclusion, right? You go to the police and say, this is what is happening to us. And if I get the justice, I'm not saying police are not doing the justice, but if the justice is coming 3-4 years down the line, what do I do for 3-4 years? You get the idea, right? And see, state is doing a lot. State is having a lot of work. So state may not be so empathetic to your cause. It might react 3 years too late. That 3 years is enough for you to for your life to go upside down, and you might be radicalized in the meanwhile. Yes, so that's one way to understand the. That's a movie, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
So that means they showed that an individual.
Definitely. But he also was rehabilitated,
Yes.
winning hearts and minds. That's more important, right? No, I haven't.
Yeah.
But I know the story. Police atrocities against the tribals, how system mistreats them, and how the system will ultimately provide justice a bit too late. Yes or no? But should we be happy that at least the justice was delivered in the end?
No.
Should we be happy that, or should we be crying that, it took a huge amount of time? The damage is done, right? Justice hurried is justice buried. Yes.
Like it's not great, but the administration should say such that they don't hurry and.
Again, that is exactly the problem, right? Tomorrow, let's say you are becoming IPS officer. Okay, Government of India will give you 5-star treatment. You will have the best of the access. You will learn how to ride a horse, a rifle. You will be provided with the best of amenities. But if you join as a home guard or as a constable, the government does not even provide you with the basic training. You don't even know the definition of Maoist. Go and ask to majority of the police officers in the state right now. They don't even know the meaning of the word Mao, where it comes from. They are police officers and they have to follow the rules. So the sensitivity training is not happening at the grassroots level. And who are the first people who the system faces? I'm a tribal. I go to the police station. Do I meet an IPS officer there? No. I meet a constable who is a product of that society, with all the prejudices, with all the stereotypes. Yes or no? He may or may not have the sensitivity. That may or not have. If you see the case in Tamil Nadu recently, two people were killed, right? Jairaj, the father and son duo were killed. Yes, it happened in middle of the town or a city, and it was done by an SI and a CI. Aren't they educated? They are graduates. SI and CI means you are a graduate. Why don't you have the sensitivity? There is no training. There is no behavioral awareness. They don't even know how much you know as a UPSC aspirant, right? So that is a problem why the system is like this. So we have to spend more time on sensitization. We have to incentivize them. We have to empower them. Slowly things will change. That is why it says, right, democracy is a journey in progress. Nothing is perfect in democracy. We have to keep making it perfect slowly. Jai Bhim is a wake-up call for the youth of the country rather than for the judicial system. We should know how the system can be brutal, right? There is even a beautiful movie called as Judge. I think it's in Netflix. It's a Marathian movie, Maharashtra movie. It's a 1.5 hour movie. You can watch that movie, just Judge only, mostly Judge only. It's a very beautiful Marathi movie. It says how the system can target you if you want it, it wants to target you. Okay, and how apathy will be built in the system. The judge will have apathy, the prosecutor will have apathy, the defending lawyer will have apathy. Yes, and you don't have anybody to support you. Okay, what kind of system have we created using apathy is very well shown in that particular movie. If you get time, 1.5 hour of your life, it's worth investing, right? So we will understand. Nobody actually cares, right? Why? when I sit in a court, when I see all these cases, this one more case, you become apathetical, right? You don't have any emotion whatsoever. Yes. Okay. The ultimate tool, the ultimate movie name, court, I think, yeah, court or judge, yes, court, I guess. So the ultimate, thanks to Google, right? Anyhow, we can find. So I was confident it's something related to judiciary, judge, court, or lawyer, something. So court, I think, yeah. It is, see, the ultimate solution is what? For the people to have the trust on the system. Let's say you have lost something on the road, a wallet or a bike or something. The first thing that should come to your mind is, I will go to police station. So if you are in that position, you are actually seeing the public service delivery, you know, you are reaping the fruits of democracy. Yes. Under option, do you get the position?
It's local settlement.
If your land is occupied by someone, do you go to police station? If you're not getting electricity from last 3 days, do you go to local electricity office? If your village is not getting electricity from last 3 days, will you go to electricity office? Yes. Okay. So if you go to electricity office, then public service delivery is working fine. But if you go to the MLA, public service delivery is broken. So that is the difference we have to bridge. Clear? People actually go to MLA rather than to the electricity station. Because they are in the apathy state. Acha, okay, complaint has been booked, we will work in 72 hours. They are following rules only, right? Why does a small girl from Telangana have to write to Chief Justice of India to get a bis, to get a there are still places in this country where they don't have electricity or bus. So we have to have the last man line in the mind. That's the most important thing. Okay. So we'll continue the discussion tomorrow. We have one more class now.